guys should talk this out as well. The UPS guy busted it. There's two UPS guys. They were literally screaming at the top of the lungs. I'm like, dude, don't do this thing. But you can talk to Mike. This is another European group out of Vienna, Austria.
And with that, we are live. Welcome, everybody. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Thank you very much for joining, everybody. Welcome to the Light 'em Up Lounge. It's Wednesday, time for another inspiring conversation, time for some fabulous guests joining us live from the Perdomo headquarters and offices. Here's the dynamic duo, father and son. I'm incredibly proud, I'm honored, I'm grateful. We have Nick Perdomo Jr., we have Nicholas Perdomo III. We will be talking about the Perdomo legacy, and I mean not just the product, but the family legacy, how the whole project came to life. And it's with great pleasure and honor that I get to welcome two special guests tonight. Nick, Nicholas, thank you very much, and welcome back to Light 'em Up.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Well, Nick, we had the pleasure of sitting like probably 3 meters from where I'm at right now, just a couple of weeks ago when you were passing through Vienna on your cruise. And I had the pleasure of sharing not only some wonderful cigars with you, but inspiring conversations as always. And that's one thing that always struck me whenever I had the privilege of spending time with you, Nick, with your son, Nicholas, with your wife, with people that work for you. You truly feel a sense of family, of togetherness, of values. And it's very much reflected in what you do every single day, what you have brought and what you continue to bring to the premium cigar world. And I think that the success that you and the company have enjoyed over the years and decades is a testament to these fundamental values that you carry in your heart, and it shines not only through your products, but it shines through every single word. And I say that at the very beginning because I feel that Perdomo Legacy now is, on the one hand, a tribute to where the company and the family stand today and the achievements of the past, but it's also part of a new chapter that Nicholas has opened in the book of the Perdomo family and the Perdomo Cigar Company. And that's really what I would love to discuss with you today. But first of all, Nick, how proud do you feel sitting next to your son, sharing with the world not only the fruits of your labor, but the future of Perdomo cigars, showcasing a product that your son has spearheaded, which he created in your honor, and which is now taking the industry by storm. How does it feel to see the next generation of Perdomo sitting next to you and, quite frankly, crushing it like you've done for the past decades?
Well, I'm extremely proud of him. You know, I wanted my son to do whatever he wanted in life. I wanted him to blaze his own trail, but he always loved the cigar industry since he was a young boy, and he spent a lot of time in Nicaragua with my late father and learned from a lot of the industry icons that worked for us, like Aristides Garcia and Sarah Gonzalez, and I could go on and on. So sometimes you see people that really take on to something and really enjoy it, and my son always loved it. And it's a blessing that we have a succession plan. You know, we've had people try to buy our company, and we had an incredible offer about 5 years ago with a very large company, probably one of the biggest premium cigar acquisitions ever. And I turned it down. And when I went to his home in Europe, he was shocked. And I said, I ain't buying another car. I'm not buying a bigger apartment. I love what I do. I don't want to work for somebody for 5 years. And he offered the CEO position to my son after my tenure would be over. And I said, look, I'm blessed. I got an exit strategy. I know a lot of people who build great businesses, and they're saddened because their children, one, don't want to be in the industry, or two, they might not have children. So I feel very blessed. And I was always very tough on my son, Reinhardt. I didn't want anybody to say, oh, this is Nick's son. I wanted him to earn it. So when he got out of college, he was on the shipping channels. He's done everything from plant tobacco to case tobacco to ferment tobacco. He's had to do everything. We always believed that you should walk the walk. And I wanted my son to deserve everything he got. He never got a desk when he first came to the company. He had to go out there and bust his ass like everybody else did. The only way a kid learns is by doing every single step, because his father did the same thing when he came on. My father certainly wasn't easy with me, even though I started the business when my dad came on in 1994. He had a regimen on how great cigars were made, and my dad was a big taskmaster, and I'm really blessed that he was. And I was tough on you for a good reason. And well, I'm blessed to say that after a dozen years being with the company, nobody says, "Oh, that's Nick's son" anymore. He's kind of blazed his trail. And this project that he developed in three to 5 years ago, when he brought it up to me, has been an incredible success story. I was just telling a couple of customers here in the lounge in my facility how they were talking about how much they enjoyed the legacy, and it's something that's totally different. It is really different. And I just can't believe the sales. Just incredible. I was just in Boston at the launch in May, and David Garofalo did over $260,000 of sales in 4 days. And he said, he's been in the industry 40 years. He said, this is the biggest cigar launch I ever saw in my life. You're talking one of the biggest retailers, bar none, in the whole world. So I'm real proud of it, no doubt.
Now, Nicholas, I I may hand over the microphone to you and almost ask you the same question, but framed slightly differently. After all these years, now here you are sitting next to your father. You have a cigar to your name out there in the market. But when the whole thing started, and when you sort of tested the waters with cigars a little bit, did you ever see yourself in the position that you're in right now? Was that even a thought to begin with, or a dream?
Yeah, of course. It's always been a dream. I've seen my dad's pushed his way through in life, and, on a smaller level within the company, we have incredible people, but, it's funny because I grew up in this business, even though it's like the analogy when, you see somebody fry an egg 1,000 times or 1,000,000 times and you've never fried the egg, you probably fry it because you've seen it done so many times. And like my dad, I pushed through. I said, I want this done. I want to do it. And being my dad's son, and just, him training me to the man I am today. And, and really, I just pushed my way through. I said, I wanted to do this project, and this project's all about my dad. There is no legacy without my dad. And of course, my dad had his grandfather and his father as his biggest, people he looked up to. And so, without my dad, there is no Perdomo cigars, to be honest with you. So that's what this brand is all about. It's all about him. And so this is something that I've been working on for, something I worked on over 5 years. There's, the pandemic came, then we had our Perdomo 30th anniversary. So it got pushed back a lot, but it gave me time too. It gave me time to really master, in terms of blending the cigar and what I wanted. And we came up with, an incredible cigar, our team. And I really was proud and grateful to work with some of the greatest tobaccos that exist today, and truly working with a new tobacco varietal that's proprietary to us. And it's something that's totally different. And I think it's taken the cigar world by surprise. And I think people are extremely excited about it, and super, I mean, I've never seen reorders like this on a new brand. I'm just super just humble and grateful, and I'm just proud that this is becoming a success. So
Yeah, we're getting reorders on people who haven't even gotten their first orders because they've actually sold boxes sight unseen to their customer base. It's very humbling.
Plenty of different nuances and things that I want to talk about in a second, and we'll get to the product most certainly. But one thing I wanted to go a little deeper on is, Nick, you mentioned that it wasn't always easy, and you've certainly been tough on your son as well, because you knew that it was going to be fundamental for his success in the business. But there's a very fine balance in the relationship you have with Nicholas as your son, knowing that at some point you'll probably pass the torch to him, carrying on the family legacy on the business side. How hard was it really for you to manage growing Nicholas into a successful businessman for the future and being the leader he needs to be so that he can slip into those enormous shoes, but at the same time also keep that very precious relationship with him from father to son? And as we all know, and particularly people in family businesses, it's a blessing on the one hand, it's a massive burden on the other hand, and it's very hard to differentiate between the personal and the professional side. How did you go about that?
Well, love is tough, and tough can equal love. I mean, the thing of it is you can be tough and fair, but I've never gone out without a night telling any of my children I love them. So they know I love them, but I'm tough on them exactly for that reason. It's because I love them. The Bible said, spare the child or spare the rod, spoil the child. I never wanted that. And one of the most proudest things I have about both of my children is they're noble, they're humble, and they're very A-type personalities like like I am. And I think, parenting naturally rubs off on you, rubs off on your children. And it's not easy being tough because you want to be their friends, but in reality, you're their parents. You're a hell of a lot more than a friend. A friend sees a kid in a fire and he cries because his friend's dying. A parent will jump in that fire to save that kid, and that's the difference. And it's a massive difference. So I love my son. So that's the reason I wanted him to do great everything he did. And I wrote him. I was hard on him because I'm a big attention to detail type of guy. And I wanted him to have that same attention to detail in everything he does. And let me tell you, he's way ahead of I was at that age. When I was 32 years old, I wasn't nearly as advanced as he was. I went through the school of hard knocks. There's no doubt about it, like anybody in business. But listen, even if things are good, it's how much someone absorbs and understands about the business. And Nicholas has done a phenomenal job on that. So yeah, I'm extremely proud of him. And as tough as I was, I knew I was doing the right thing. And I think I got good guidance from my father and my mother. And I think Janine and I both did a wonderful job raising Nicholas and Natalie. We're very blessed to have them as our children. And I'm very blessed to be able to work with my son and have such a good relationship and getting things done. And we have one goal, and we're driven and we're relentless about it. And it's been very good for our company. And it's been good for our retailers all around the world. Look how blessed I am. I have two distributors on this call. I got, Hansa Braun from the Czech Republic, who does all our stuff, and a couple great guys from the Czech Republic here. I have Scott Vines, our distributor from Tour Imports in the UK here. It's really like a family when you see that the guys that sell your cigars will come on a podcast. They got a lot of stuff to do in their lives, and they're taking an hour or so off just to hear me. And I want to thank every one of you that are on this Zoom call and on YouTube and all the different areas that they're coming in. It's touching for me. And Reinhard, thanks for thinking of me too. This is a pleasure to do this. We're very thankful, and it's nice when you love what you do.
It makes it easy, huh? Or at least it makes it look easy. And let me tell you, we have to be grateful for you guys taking the time and spending some of your precious afternoon with us here and educating us on the Perdomo legacy. So we have to be grateful, and it means a lot, most certainly. Now, Nick, when you see your son or any of your kids going out on their own, and even though in this particular case with the Perdomo legacy, it happens within the confinement and a well protected, in the most positive sense, area of an extremely successful and well established business. But when you see your kids go out on their own, such an initial step, even though Nicholas has made many, is tough and not easy, and you want them to learn and to grow with the whole thing. And yet you said Perdomo Legacy as a product has been such a success story from the get-go. Uh, how do you continue to take your role as a father and as a mentor with Nicholas now that he's taken a more prominent role in the spotlight, also representing the company, but also creating his own products and paving the path for the years and decades to come?
Well, I've always trusted. Now I got a lot more trust in him because of the success of the brand and all the work he's doing. He's coming up with all types of training gear for our retailers in America, for our consumers all around the world, so they'd be able to know a lot about the products. I think he's been doing a lot of stuff that's pretty revolutionary in a great way in the cigar industry by really training. Um, and what makes the Perdomo Legacy and any of our brands for that matter so special. We have new gear coming out. There's new diploma list coming out for the select retailers around America that carry the brand, and we're looking to launch it, all throughout the world here in the future. We're just mind blown at the amount of sales that we've had since May. I mean, we have numbers that most brand owners would be happy if they had a 2-year run like that, literally in 2 months. Just to tell you the dedication that we have. I have a girl that works for me named Annabelle Lopez. She's been with me for 33 years. She's the head of our quality control. And if you've been to our factories, you know that we check every cigar 18 times before it goes into a box. We're kind of anal with our quality control. With that being said, Nicholas said, this cigar I made for my dad. And she said, well, I love your dad. And she said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in every morning an hour early. I'm going to work through lunch every day, and I'm going to stay 2 hours late. If your dad offers me $1, I quit. I do this out of love. So after everything has gone through with all the quality control checks, Annabelle would come in every morning an hour early and recheck every cigar hand by hand. And as of April, she had gone through 933,000 cigars that she personally guaranteed, after everything was guaranteed by all these set of specialists, to make sure that these cigars were absolutely perfect. And I'm blessed to have a workforce like that. And also the respect factor that my son has brought in, even in Nicaragua with our workforce, because you got to remember these workers, the average worker's been with me for almost 22 years. So almost all my workers have known Nicholas since he was a baby when I would bring him down to Esteli. He was a little kid, you know what I mean? So they've really known him since he was a baby, including my daughter. So you talk about a family-run unit where everybody is so close and everybody's pulling the same way. It makes life a lot easier and much more pleasurable when it comes to making the greatest cigars we can possibly make.
Amen. Nick, when did you actually learn about Nicholas' project, or when did you feel that something was bubbling beneath the surface?
Well, we had started this project in 2015 at one of our farms called Finca Natalie. It's one of our most beautiful farms right in the center of Esteli. And Esteli produces really heavy like tobaccos, volcanic grounds, jet black dirt. You can go 200 meters down. The dirt is just as black as it is on top. And several of the people that are watching have been on that particular farm. But I wanted to grow a shade grown crop there. And I'm a big Cameroon lover, as you know, Reinhardt. And what I wanted to do was cross strain with our genetic department Cameroon seed with our Habano 98 seed. And basically it starts with a cotton swab and a fine paintbrush. And we were taking the pollen, or those guys were taking the pollen and working. We developed the seed just short of 2016. And we started growing shade grown tobacco in Esteli where people said it couldn't be done. And you see what's happened. The only thing it's funny about is the tobacco, even under shade, has grown so dark. It's like a dark reddish brown, but it has this unique flavor. It has the sweetness and the spiciness of Cameroon, and it also has that really molassesy tobacco core flavor that Habano has in that seed bridle that we have. And so a lot of guys that know me will tell you I'm a tobacco hoarder. I keep a tremendous amount of inventory of well-aged tobacco in our facilities. And my son had come up to me a little over 5 years ago and said, "What are we going to do with all this tobacco?" And I said, "I don't know. We're going to come up with something special, but we have a lot of this wrapper and binder that we've produced." And you can imagine we grew this tobacco for almost 8.5 years and never used it at the time. And my son said, "I got a project that I want to do." And I said, "Really?" And I said, "What for?" And he said, "I want to do a cigar for you." And I said, "Well, why?" And he said, "I want to commemorate your 60th birthday in 2025." And I said, "Well, why do you want to do that?" He said, "Because I want to." And I said, "Nicholas, nobody really gives a shit when I'm 60 years old." And my son said, and I've said this a million times, my son said, "Well, I do, Dad." And everybody who's a father out there knows exactly where I'm coming from. It was special when your son, I mean, the hair rises on my arms even talking about it right now. So I said, "Go for it." And he was very methodical in the way he did it. Number series on different cigars and different blends. Smoke this Monday, Wednesday, write down everything. Smoke this Tuesday and Thursday, then smoke this on the weekend. And I ended up coming up with a number that I liked. We went through our whole tasting panel. It was really thoroughly done. And I would say almost every one of us picked cigar number one. Some people picked cigar number two, some people picked it, but it was the vast majority was one. And I went, "This is the one I personally think is great, but it needs to be tamed down." And he had a piece of paper and he said, "This is the one you picked." And I said, "Yeah, boy, you're pretty good." So he guessed the one I wanted. And so we made these cigars in 24, and we finished the production in October of 24, and we decided to launch it in May. So the cigars would be well aged once they were made. And he did a phenomenal job. Arthur Kemper did a phenomenal job together with him in the packaging. It's something unique. I can show you a box here. You could for those who haven't seen it. So if you look at the top of the box, it's called a dome lid. So I'm just going to come up here and kind of bring it up to you so you can really see the colors. It's a polyurethane that's over the top of it. It's something like that's never really been done. Our friends in Holland of Rydeg did it. And if you look at the interior of the box, let me try to get the shot. But if you take a look at the wrappers. They're beautiful. They almost look like they're Maduro, and they're actually grown under shade. So they have the consistency of flavor with that sweet flavor that I like from Cameroon, and the sweet flavor that I like from our 98C. I like that cinnamon, like honey molasses flavor that people taste. And it really worked extremely well together, the wrapper. Um, the blend is phenomenal, but it's a stout cigar. But once we made these cigars, we put them in aging and released them in May. These cigars had 7, 8 months on them. It really kind of tamed down. It really was the essence of what I wanted when we were forecasting this cigar. And we've been really happy. Our consumers love it. Repeat buys are astronomical. Like you can imagine, we're in July. The cigar's only been out literally 2 months. It came out to David's in May, but we really didn't start releasing until June. Yeah, middle of
a month.
yeah, it's literally been just over a month. And if I told you the amount of numbers that we've done, you wouldn't believe it. But it's been extreme. It's been phenomenal. I mean, literally, it's over a year of sales, literally in a month and a half. And we were ready for it. And so we're happy.
What was your starting point, Nicholas, when you thought about this project and that you wanted to honor your father with a special cigar? Now, obviously, it would have to somehow fit into the overarching Perdomo realm or the world of Perdomo. Yet at the same time, given that this was really your first project where you're proudly behind it, I would imagine you also want to give it a bit of your own personality and give it your own spin. And so also knowing that you want to create something that would please your father, I guess, because when you pay homage to somebody, you want that person to enjoy the product themselves. That makes for a lot of variables and a lot of, you know, nuances you need to factor in when even starting to think about a taste profile, an aromatic profile, a cigar that you want to put forth.
Well, one of the things I did when I was, when I started blending the cigar, I started before the Nicaraguan using Nicaraguan shade-grown tobacco. I mean, I started using, different Connecticut wrappers, tongue-grown wrappers, Maduro wrappers. I had people, when people found out that I was working blends, some different tobacco growers actually gave me some samples from other countries and things like that. And I really wanted to stick with Nicaraguan. We have such incredible tobacco, but when I first started, it was, to be honest with you, it was rough. I was making cigars that were pretty linear. You got to remember, I'm just trying to work and trying to do something different. But to your point, stay with Perdomo. I made cigars that were way too heavy. I made cigars that were a little linear, and then I started going in and working, where we have our bales of tobacco in our warehouses, and then I saw our Nicaraguan shade-grown tobacco, and I was in Nicaragua. So I was with our general manager, Miguel Rivera. Said, "Hey, what's this?" And he said, "This is the shade-grown crop that we've been growing in Esteli, and this is some tobacco your dad's put to the side, maybe to do a 35th or 40th anniversary." And I said, "Well, I want to use it now. I want to play with this tobacco." And we started working with it. And then also too, one of the other things that makes the cigar special is I really fell in love with this higher priming tobaccos from Condega, these higher visos. And so I really wanted to incorporate. We never used this tobacco before. To me, it's very similar to the power of Esteli, but also has the nice sweetness of Jalapa. It's kind of both together. So I really fell in love with this tobacco, and because I'm making a cigar out of my dad, I only wanted to use the best tobaccos that we had, and I really wanted to use higher primings, and this is, like my dad says, a very stout cigar, but I dare to say it's probably the most full-bodied, balanced cigar in the world today. And it was very important the way we age tobacco and how after we make the cigars, minimum having those cigars sit between 7 to 8 months before they're put in the box. It's extremely important. But I've had people who tell me I like mild cigars, and they've smoked our new Perdomo Legacy Nicaraguan shade grown and said, "Man, this is what I like. This is super smooth." But I think a lot of people get strength and smoothness somewhat confused. So because tobaccos are all 10-year age from wrapper binder fillers, they're all 10-year age tobaccos. They're extremely smooth, but they are very rich. To me, this cigar it's like a German chocolate cake. It's just very heavy. It's very rich, but it's a tremendous cigar. So when I started working with this tobacco, that's when everything just started hitting and just started working really well. And I worked on this first blend with Nicaraguan shade grown as the wrapper. And then what didn't make wrapper grade, I was fortunate enough to be able to use that. And I wanted to incorporate this Nicaraguan shade grown wrapper also in our Maduro blends and the Connecticut blends. So it really, to me, this tobacco really elevates being grown in Esteli, having just the elasticity, the texture, everything, and it's extremely, the combustibility is absolutely phenomenal. Being able to incorporate that and help to elevate the Connecticut wrappers and help to elevate the Maduro blends as well. It just worked. It's like harmonious, to be quite honest with you. So I'm just really proud of it, and I'm just glad that it's out in the market and people are enjoying it.
Yeah, I thought it was a genius move when he took the Nicaraguan shade grown tobacco and imparted that in the Connecticut and the Maduro. So if you like something creamy in the Connecticut, you would still get the nuances of that flavor of the Nicaraguan shade grown. And if you liked something a little more sweeter in the Maduro side, you still had the binder from the Nicaraguan shade grown. So regardless of wrapper that people prefer, you got to taste that tobacco in every single wrapper, that regardless of what you picked. And that was a really great move, and that really differentiates cigar. It's something totally different than, I mean, all our stuff is phenomenal, but this is just something very unique and kind of proprietary to us, and we're really proud of. I hear people, "I'm growing tobacco at 50,000 feet in the air." I still haven't figured out what the hell that means, but we're this tobacco is extremely unique because of the seed varietal. It's our guys did a phenomenal job too. We have a great genetic department, and being vertically integrated is such a blessing because we really control our own destiny. We can do what we want because it's under the careful hands of our family of workers too.
Yeah, extremely important point, being vertically integrated and controlling virtually every step of the process. Let's get technical for a moment, if I may. And there's a couple of points that I want to pick your brains on. But first, since you spoke about the different iterations, we see it behind you on the wall. I think Perdomo is probably the leading example in the cigar industry in terms of visibility, product representation on the shelf, and creating the Perdomo wall that is very easily recognizable for the consumer walking into the humidor. And normally they just see a wall of brown, and then here's Perdomo, and it's so easily recognizable. But on a cigar level, you basically offer most of your blends in three different iterations, in a Connecticut Shades variant, a Maduro version, and a sun grown or a shade grown, as in this case. How do you form a cohesive line around those three iterations, knowing that they will all be different parts of, let's say, one story, but clearly and recognizably one line, so that no matter if you pick shade, Connecticut, well, the Connecticut shade, the shade grown, or the Maduro, it's legacy, and you recognize that. How do you achieve that? How do you go about that from a blending perspective?
So I mean, it's the whole thing is that it's the wrappers are the offset, right? So to my dad's point, somebody who likes the Connecticut wrapper, wants the creaminess. They stay within the line. That's really the big thing. Maduro is naturally sweet. Maduro in Spanish means to ripen, so it has a natural sweetness. And so, but utilizing and keeping the blend, the filler tobaccos consistent, and having them all the same throughout three different blends, and then now incorporating Nicaraguan shade grown, whether it be the wrapper on the actual Nicaraguan shade grown or as the binder for the Connecticut Maduro. We keep everybody within the line, but they can always ping pong around and jump and go, you know what? I love the Nicaraguan shade grown. I want something a little bit sweeter. I'm going to smoke the Maduro today. Or you know what? This morning I want to have a nice cup of, a nice cappuccino. I want the Connecticut. But you're still going to get that flavor, because the way when I blended the cigar, I wanted to make sure that consistency was key. And to go back, the first thing I did before I started opening bales of tobacco, before I started really, once I went through the trial, and then I understood where I was going right and where I was going wrong. The first thing I did was I sat with our accountant in Nicaragua and our general manager, Miguel Rivera. I said, I want to look at our inventories on an Excel spreadsheet. I want to see what we have for wrapper. I want to see what we have for binder. I want to see what we have for seco, piso, ligero. Because what I wanted to do was, because consistency is everything, what I wanted to do was I wanted to make sure that whatever cigar I made today, we're continuing to grow that type of cigar, or continue to grow that tobacco today through tomorrow, and we're able to make that cigar not just for today, but for many, many years. This is a brand that I want to make sure that it's going to be here when my kids are a part of this business. So that's really where I, taking a step, from my dad, and really just understanding inventory and understanding the true aspect of consistency. It's all about what you have. It's all about what your inventory. So that's really how Perdomo Legacy, just to give you a little behind the scenes, just in terms of consistency and within your question.
Yeah, and I always think that the three wrappers are no different than the three best cuts of meat. You got filet, you got bone-in ribeye, and you got a porterhouse. And I think those are the three things. So I think, for example, if you love 12-year double age vintage in Connecticut and you want something a little spicy, you can go to the sun grown. You want something a little sweeter, you go to the Maduro. And guess what? That 12-year smoker becomes a 12-year smoker for decades. And that's how we built brands like Perdomo Reserve Champagne's been out 25 years, Perdomo Habano, or in your case, Perdomo Nicaragua's been out 24 years, Perdomo Lot 24 years, Perdomo Fresco 24 years. Our youngest brand before we came out with 30th was our 20th anniversary. That's a young 14-year. Look, I think retailers have plenty of cigars. I think what they want is longevity, great brands. Unfortunately, in our industry, here, at least in the United States, everybody throws something against the wall and hope it sticks. And every year they come up with something new. Maybe I'm not smart enough, but it takes us about 3 to 4 years to really come up with a new blend. We really have to project. We have to taste tobacco. We have to forecast tobacco. I see some of these brands that have 50 brands. I don't know how they do it. I've been doing it for almost 3.5 decades. We come from a long lineage of great cigar makers, and it takes us a long time. Forget about the package, just making the cigars and try to differentiate them and fine tune them. It takes a long time, but I'm a big believer in those three wrappers. I think we're the only company that still does that. If you love a cigar, you might want to try that blend and have a little bit of a different nuance, like Nicholas said, with a different wrapper. And I think that's been our exit, and our strategy's worked really well in keeping people. One of the things we do have is we have a very loyal Perdomo army all over the world that really are very loyal to our brands. And I think our team does a great job in paying them back for their loyalty by making wonderful products. So we're very blessed in that aspect. So that's, I think Nicholas and I think that's kind of hits the three wrappers of why we do that.
Excellent point, and absolutely, I think to what I said earlier about the Perdomo wall, which is so easily recognizable, you made an excellent point about the consistency aspect. In that, if you fall in love with a certain cigar, with the Perdomo offering, you can rely on that cigar being a long-running success story and a cigar that you can enjoy tomorrow, 5, 10, 20 years from now, and you will always have that recognizable experience that takes you right back to that first cigar that made you fall in love. And I would also wholeheartedly agree that this is something we don't see very often in our industry, where nowadays it's a lot about what's new, the next limited edition. And when you fall in love with something, it might be off the shelf and you have to, treasure hunt the next best thing. And it might create a certain turnover, and it might help certain companies managing inventory, which can be tough. But this is where you truly excel because you have such a vast archive of well-aged and properly fermented tobacco. And this is another point that I want to deep dive on for a moment. Nicholas, I couldn't agree more with what you said about people confusing strength from a nicotine level with richness in terms of body and mouth feel, and also the aromatic expression of the cigar and the complexity in the smoke. Now, I remember fondly, Nick, when we sat over in that chair in the corner there, you started telling me about the time it takes for some of these high texture tobaccos that you grow in Esteli during the fermentation process. So I would love for you to talk a little bit about the fermentation and the aging, in regards to the tobaccos that you grow, the thickness, the oiliness, the texture that you have in those leaves, and how you need to work that tobacco to reach a stage of maturity, harmony, and balance, so it makes for a great smoking experience.
That's a great question. Nicaraguan tobacco, because of our grounds being volcanic, so heavy, produce a couple things. They produce extremely lush, very porous, very oily, very resin laden tobaccos. Those tobaccos need a long time in proper fermentation and aging. Even the curing periods are normally upwards to double the time that they take from other vicinities. And what's unique about our grounds are we're not like Cuba, Honduras, or the Dominican Republic, where everything's in a 10-mile circular radius. We have farms that are 100 miles away from us. We have farms that are wrapped around river basins. There's even farms that grow tobacco on volcanoes that were inactive, and they're unactive today. And one of the great things about Nicaragua is Nicaragua has three things that are really important. Nicaragua is an Indian word that means never without water. We have a tremendous water source, which naturally tobacco needs. Second, during our growing season, we get up to 15 to 15 and a half hours of sunshine. That produces a tremendous amount of photosynthesis, which of course makes the cellular structure much thicker, and the tobaccos are much heavier. And then finally, we have the greatest infrastructure in the world, because the greatest cigar makers in the world are from Cuba, but they don't live in Cuba anymore. And most of the greats went to Nicaragua. And if it wasn't for the Sandinista Revolution in the 70s, I don't even know if the Dominican Republic or Honduras would even exist today. And Nicaragua has those three attributes, which are perfection for premium cigar tobacco. But there's one big disadvantage. And the big disadvantage is it takes a hell of a long time to ferment tobaccos. For example, if you ferment light tobaccos in the Esteli Valley, on average, you can take anywhere between 24 and 36 months. A lot of cigars haven't been even fermented for 6 months and are rolled on a cigar. So it kind of puts us at a disadvantage if you do it right. But at the end, the consumer is the one who wins, because they're going to taste the rich core tobacco flavor. They're going to taste what the cigar is supposed to taste like. And then when you do some of the things that I learned from my father, barrel aging the tobacco in bourbon barrels, and all these little intricacies that we do to add the finishing touches, are kind of what differentiates our cigars from everybody else's. And I'm proud of that. And I'm also proud of our reasonable price points. I don't care if it's the UK or if it's North Miami. We're for a super premium cigar, I think we're the most reasonable in the world. My father always said, and I said this yesterday, small margins guarantee you stay in business and hogs get slaughtered. And what we're seeing right now in the States is a lot of young cigar makers that really don't know much coming out with these really outrageously expensive cigars. And I know that tobacco's through the roof and things are costly and stuff, but the consumer doesn't have a tree of money either. You know what I mean? So I'm proud that we're only renowned for our quality construction, but we're also renowned for, for our price points, and we find them to be extremely fair. And I think that's why our market is doing so good. Right now, we're up double digits. The industry is down in the United States 9.5%. Nicaragua is the #1 exporter of cigars into the United States by far, but Nicaragua's down, yet we're up double digits. I attribute that not only to the loyalty of the Perdomo Army we have in the United States, but also to the fantastic price points we offer. It makes our salesman's job a lot easier. It makes our retailers' jobs a lot easier, and the consistency of our workforce makes it a big win for both of us. So curing and aging does take a long time. I mean, I have tobaccos, ligeros from Esteli, take 60, 62 months to be really perfect before they're going to go into a cigar. There's the countries that you can ferment ligeros at 9 months and they're pretty much fermented. But the consumer really wins when he gets well-aged tobacco like that. Just because tobacco is old doesn't mean it's great. You got to have the right people working it. You have to use low and slow methods that we use. We don't like to heat up our tobacco. It's like barbecue. We want that tobacco to marinate, to get its flavors. No different than like a great sauce. You have a nice sauce today, you eat it, it's delicious. You wait the next day and you eat it, it tastes even better because those flavors meld. That's why it's very important. And when a cigar is made, it has to be aged too. You want to get the secos, the bisas, ligeros, the light, medium, and strong tobaccos to blend and to meld into one so they become harmonious, like Nicholas said. You want that binder to really work well. All those tobaccos sit there in that aging period in those cedar rooms, and it's great for the consumer. In fact, I've seen factories where they make cigars and they box them the same day. That's wrong. I mean, I learned the right way, and you got to continue doing it the right way. And but making cigars in Nicaragua is not easy if you do it correctly. That's for sure.
Nick, can you talk a little more about the aging? Because it seems that on the one hand, there's plenty of cigars on the market where you can feel a little bit of that youngish, green, harsh bite. And at the same time, it also looks that in the press releases or in the marketing statements, more and more manufacturers brag about certain age of tobacco or start some weird calculations about the average age the cigar will have because there's a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old leaf in it, and then you come up with an astronomical number that might sound fancy. To me, it reminds me of the days when you had a proud 25 statement on a rum, but nobody truly cared or controlled that, and it was probably some Solera creative way of saying we have up to 25-year-old juice in that bottle when in essence it was a 5-year-old rum, and you dress up the bride. How do you do that? How do you manage inventory, and what is that magic touch that the barrel aging process adds to the Perdomo tobaccos?
Well, that's a threefold question. The first thing is you have to grow tobacco to be able to have consistency and to have big stocks of well-aged tobacco. My biggest fight every year is with our accounting firm saying, why do you grow so much tobacco that you're not going to use for so long? And they don't understand that that's the only way you make a great cigar is by having well-aged tobacco. But you got to have installation centers that are excellent too. You got to have very good interchange of oxygen and humidity. You have to have facilities that are literally hermetically sealed so they can capture all that stuff. And you have to have the right people working it. That's the first thing. The second thing is these tobaccos have to have their time, and there's a secret in tobacco. And my father taught me, it's your eyeballs, it's your nose, and your fingers. If you're touching that tobacco and it sticks, it needs more time. If you smell that tobacco and it doesn't kick you in the head like a horse, it needs more time. And then finally, you have to look at the color shades and see if there's tobaccos and see the cellular structure of the tobacco plant and see a uniformity of colors. Once those tobaccos don't stick anymore, temperatures don't rise anymore, colors are uniform, and that tobacco smells like the solid core of tobacco, like it should smell, then that tobacco is done. But that takes a long time, and a lot of people don't have the time to do it. 95% of people buy tobacco from farmers, and that's fine. We choose to be vertically integrated, and that's what's worked for us, and that's why we have stocks of tobacco for so long. Remember, I'm going into my 27th year of growing tobacco, and I grow a lot more tobacco than what I need for a reason. To me, it's better than having money in the bank. But sooner or later, I'm going to sell that tobacco or those cigars. But the most important thing of it is I'm always guaranteed that I have well-aged fillers, binders, and wrappers. We just went over our inventory, for example, in dark cured tobacco or Maduro wrappers. Right now, I have an inventory of almost 73 months if I grow the company at 25% a year. So that's good. My accountants think I have too much inventory. That's why they're accountants. That's why I'm a CEO of a company. Okay. And who wins with that is us and our consumers. I want John Strange to go out and say, you know what? I can guarantee this cigar is great. And he doesn't get kicked in the teeth by somebody saying, no, it wasn't great. And I don't want my friend in Dubai saying, hey, I recommend this cigar. And then someone goes to him, this cigar wasn't great. Boy, that's like a kick in my chest if I hear something like that, right? So we're real resolute about that. At my stage of my career, I told my son this, and I've probably heard it before. I said, the only thing I care about, I paved this road pretty good. You're going to keep paving it. You're going to asphalt it. But I only care about two things. I care about the retailer being confident, bringing them to the Perdomo section. And second, that the consumer says, I've never smoked a bad Perdomo cigar. To me, I could sleep like a baby. Look, I work for my grandchildren today. I've sold hundreds of millions of cigars in my life. I'm doing okay, but I'm doing it because I love this. I still go out on the road nonstop. Next week, I'll be with my friend Scott Mines in Scotland. With the Meet the Makers thing, we're doing a trade show in Dubai. Just was with my friends in Prague, and wish I was with every one of you, but I still do it. And my CFO says, why do you always do all this traveling? You don't need to do it anymore. I say, do it because I fucking love it. That's why I do it. It's great. Love to see the customers, love to see my consumers. I'm a real people person. I enjoy hanging out with people. And boy, what a blessing I got. Nobody comes up to me and says, I need a box of cigars because I'm getting screwed in a divorce or I'm going to a funeral. Everybody's happy to give you their money, and they enjoy what you do, and they get a lot of enjoyment of what they did. Look, I was just in Prague. I was on vacation. Hansa called me up and said, hey, we're going to have a bunch of guys over, and, would you come over? And we ended up doing 2 events in 2 nights. And I did it with pleasure. It was great. And got to see a lot of great people. And everybody's happy to see it. I'm equally as happy to see them. So, sometimes I got to pinch myself. How lucky am I for being a rock star? You know what I mean? So it's really great.
We had a great follow-up question from one of our loyal viewers over on YouTube. Benjamin, shout out to you. Nicholas, Benjamin was asking, could you probably speak briefly about the strength comparison between the 3 iterations, Connecticut Shade, Shade Grown Nicaraguan, and Maduro?
Sure. I mean, I would say that the Nicaraguan Shade Grown and the Maduro are both probably medium to full bodied. I'd say medium plus the full. And then the Connecticut is more medium plus. When I originally blended all 3 cigars, the Connecticut was the most powerful, believe it or not. That was the hardest cigar to blend of all 3. And because that wrapper, even though it's a light colored wrapper, even though it has very creamy flavor, once the cigar's proper, when we ferment the tobacco, aged tobacco, and barrel aged tobacco, and we have the beautiful honey Scotch butter color, and it's just extremely creamy. That tobacco has a tremendous amount of nicotine. Even though it looks light, it delivers. And so that was the cigar when I originally made the 3 blends. I actually had to dial down on the proportions. It's all the same filler tobaccos, but I had to dial it down just a little bit. So that's just another little backstory on that. But I would say it's medium plus the full body, all 3 blends. But they're very, again, 10-year aged tobaccos. All the Connecticut wrappers were barrel aged for a minimum of 8 months. The Nicaraguan Shade Grown wrappers were barrel aged for a minimum of 10 months. The Maduro wrappers were barrel aged for a minimum of 14 months. Again, all this extra, the aging, additional aging The resting, tremendous amounts of months in the aging rooms after cigars have been rolled. It's one of those things where it's extremely, they're very rich cigars, but they're extremely balanced. To me, it is the most rich, balanced cigar that's on the market, no doubt.
Awesome. Thank you. Ian had his hand up for a while, so I would like to bring him in and have him ask his question.
Hi, Nick and Nicholas. Really enjoying this, and I enjoy, Nick, your YouTube channels, and I watched your masterclass of about an hour-long YouTube a while ago, and you were talking about the need for water and so on, and also I think you talked about taking people out into the fields and hearing the tobacco grow, which I was really amused by. Perhaps you can give us another little snippet, something that we wouldn't expect to hear. I'd also have to say I love your cigars, and my brother lives in the States. Scott, don't listen to this, but I buy cigars in the States, and I ordered some from Corona in Florida on the phone, and when I mentioned Perdomo cigars, they said, "Oh, good choice." So they obviously got fans in the retailers as well. And a second question, tell us about perhaps the threats to the business and the opportunities that you see going forward.
Great question. As far as growing the tobacco, it was kind of funny. The story was I had a young man, and I told him that tobacco can grow upwards to 2 to 3 inches a day on the cycle, and you can actually hear it. It sounds like remember Rice Krispies, the cereal, when you put it up to him, the snap, crackle, pop, and he said, "Oh, it's impossible." I said, "Look, man, one thing I don't do, I'm not much of a liar." I said, "I'll bet you that you'll hear the tobacco growing." And he said, "I'll bet you." I said, "How much you want to bet?" He said, "Well," I said, "How about we bet $500?" He said, "Well, I don't want to bet $500, but I'll bet you $100." I said, "Okay." So I said, "You got to get up early." He said, "How early?" I said, "I'll pick you up at 3:45 in the morning. The sun starts rising around 4:15. Took him to one of the farms, and he was freaking out because you could see and hear the tobacco growing during that time. And I said, "You see?" So that's the first thing. So that is the truth. I'd be pretty stupid if I was lying about that. The second, it is a weed in reality, but it's a very complex one, but it does grow pretty substantially, especially once you start tilling the ground and those root bases can start moving and those heavy grounds in Esteli. Tobacco grows tremendously. I show people on the farms, this is 12 days, this is 15 days, and the one that's 3 days older is 40% higher in thickness and in altitude and height than the cigar that was 6 days. A lot of the guys who've been here have actually seen it. So it does grow really quick. The second thing is we're bringing back the YouTube channel, so we're going to get more active on it. That was his idea. I'm starting to run out of ideas, but now we're going to get back to it, Ian. So you're going to be able to enjoy that. And as far as answering your questions, what we see as far as trials and tribulations, one of the things we're worried about is, where do you live, Ian?
England.
Yeah, your country is the one that really scares me. You guys have lost it, and I hope you guys get it back. It's the UK is something near and dear to Americans. You know what I mean? It's the country of Winston Churchill, not of what you guys got going on now. Unfortunately, and listen, I'm pretty open-minded to everything. I mean, I don't see many Englishmen in England anymore, and it scares me. And you guys got to get your country back, and you guys got to get the right people back. And you guys,
we need a cigar-smoking prime minister, I think.
Well, you have a smart cigar-smoking prime minister?
No, I wish we did.
Yeah, well, you got to vote his ass out. You got to get some people who believe in freedom and believe in the sovereignty of the UK. But that's one of the countries we're worried about. We're worried about the amount of regulations and taxes you guys have. Listen, we've gone through the same things here in America, but we voted these people out. People get tired of it, and they say enough's enough. And politicians need votes, and that's how we did it in America. Listen, we went through a rough trade. We had Joe Biden for 4 years. That was not easy. Talking about an anti-tobacco zealot, an anti-business zealot. I mean, things have really changed in the last 6 months. Inflation's gone down to 1.6%. Gasoline has gone down. I haven't been happy about the tariffs, but I understand it to a point. You got to play on a level playing field, even though it's personally hurt me. But I get it. I love my country, right? So it's a tough call. I mean, I see things getting better and better, but there are some countries that do scare me. Especially the UK. Winston Churchill, man, it was a cigar country. J.J. Fox, all these great cigar stores. We got to bring that back again. There's a lot of great smokers like yourself out in the UK, and we got to get it back. But that's the thing that scares me, and everything that scares me is always government intrusion. You know, the Democratic Party in the United States is certainly not a friend to the cigar industry. And we have some wacky states like my friend Andy. You should see where he lives. That's a wacky state. He'll tell you. I mean, I don't even consider it part of the United States. I call it the People's Republic of California. So, you know, we have some weird shit here too in the United States. But you know, we're also opening up more and more countries. You know, we're in almost 72 different countries around the world and growing, and a lot of countries are really growing with us. And
but I think that's our biggest weakness. But I would say, Ian, our opportunity is we're family run, we're family owned, and we're Nicaraguan grown. We just purchased another 100 manzanas, which is about 170, a little over 170 acres. We continue to acquire more land. Our brand is growing tremendously. We're trying to keep up with the demand, which is the biggest struggle. But I think the biggest opportunity we have going is that we're family run. And I think me coming into the fold as the next generation, alongside working with my dad and our great people here in the United States and Nicaragua, I think the opportunity is incredible. And my dad and I, we have one goal, is really to be the best. And I think that's how we're driven. That's how we lead every day. And so I think the biggest opportunity outside our biggest threats are government regulations and things like that. But I think our opportunity definitely outweighs our threats, to be quite honest with you. And every day I think we just keep pushing and pushing. That's just the Perdomo way. Really, it's how my dad's done it for over 30 years, and that's how I do it because I just watched him do it for 30 years. And so that's really where I think as a company, our opportunities is really within the family and just being aggressive and just going for the jugular every day.
And we've tried to be proactive with our distributors around the world, trying to assist them as much as we can. And I think we've done a good job. And a lot of it has to do with what Nicholas said, being a family-run business. So England and the UK is something special in my heart. I remember when I went to J.J. Fox and I sat down in Winston. I'm a big Churchill fan. I thought one of the greatest things I ever did in my life was going to the Churchill War Room. I thought that was incredible. And so we want the best for every one of you guys, that's for sure.
And you're talking about places. I was staying last month with my friend Charlie Lax in Massachusetts. He's going to live in Florida, but he refers to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Without a doubt.
But we went down to Rhode Island, and there you can smoke much more freely. And that was a great state to smoke cigars in.
Well, when you get a chance, come down to Florida. It's the greatest state in the country. It's the most free.
My brother lives there, so I'm there quite frequently. Yeah.
You get down to Miami, come and see us. But we're very open. We have an incredible governor, and he believes in people's rights to do whatever they want as long as it's legal.
You can smoke pretty much anywhere. You can smoke a cigar anywhere you like.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Ryan, over to you. And good evening to Dubai. Great to see you, buddy.
Good evening, everyone. How are you doing?
Hey, right.
It's been a long time. Nick and Nicholas, it's an absolute pleasure. I want to start by thanking you for your support, thanking you for producing phenomenal cigars, thanking you for coming to Dubai next November. That's so brilliant. I'm so excited. I can't begin to tell you. And obviously for the opportunity to get to see you soon at Make the Makers. My question to you, believe it or not, has nothing to do with cigars. It has to do with something that I saw, a video that you guys posted that just blew my mind. So I started learning how to play the drums. And I know that Nick plays the drums, Nicholas plays the drums, and your even grandson has his own set of drums. And I think that's brilliant. Now, if Nick plays the drums, that's one thing. If he passes on to Nicholas, that's another thing. But if they continue to pass it on to the grandkid, there's something going on. And my question to you is, how does music play in the symphony and in the mindset of the Perdomo family?
I think that, sure. So the biggest thing about being a drummer, the most important thing, everybody wants to be Neil Peart, have the beautiful, the riffs and everything. And but it's really, that's not the most important thing. There's an analogy. The drummer's supposed to be the back of the chair where the band's supposed to be able to lean on and rely on that for keeping time and everything. And I think it kind of works. Like my dad is the chair of our company and people can lean on him. And my dad, at the end of the day, controls the tempo of the band, controls the tempo of the company. And that's kind of really what being a drummer is. And if I put it to, professional, in a business setting, that's kind of what it is. We do run, we keep the time going. If the drummer's off, we throw the band off. So that's how I look at it. And yeah, we love playing drums. My dad taught me when I was about 5 years old how to play. He's been playing for
That's amazing.
years. And my daughter actually, she's got the rhythm of her dad and her grandfather, her mother too. My wife's a great dancer, but she's got it. She knows how to move her hands and
Brilliant.
so I think it could be genetic. You never know.
That's amazing.
I think you're right.
That's amazing. Thank you for that.
Thank you, right?
So many wonderful questions. Thank you all for chiming in and for sharing your thoughts and your feedback. You guys here at the lounge, and of course over at YouTube, everybody for chiming in there. Dejan, you were next in line.
Hi, hello again. I have a very different question today because I see there is a representative for the Czech Perdomo army with us. And this question is basically for, I don't know who's going to answer it, but the question is, when will I be able to get the Perdomo cigars, especially the latest ones, in the Czech Republic, in Excalibur city shop where I go to, which is right here on the border with Austria. It's a beautiful shop with cigars. I always go there, but they don't carry Perdomos. And I'm always asking them, when are they gonna get Perdomos? And they don't know the answer.
Well, what happened with them is they were actually a big customer, but they weren't following proper business practices with our Czech partners. So we decided to do the right thing, and Hans Braun can answer the question better than I because he's our distributor, and his team is our distribution team, and he could tell you different areas where they can either mail them or get them to you across the border into the Czech Republic. Maybe Hansi, you can answer the question.
Yeah, we had a problem with the price quotes what they put on the market, so we decided that we have to do something with that because they was very, very cheap and it doesn't make any sense to anyone on the market. Since then, they stopped selling Perdomo cigars. We are offering them the cigars every single month, but they still are saying, we think about it, we'll see. But I know that they should have it.
Well, how can this gentleman get the cigars in the Czech Republic, Hansi?
He can get it from us. I can send him my contact and we can send it to him. But
yeah,
it
the
depends
problem
where
is you cannot send to Austria. I cannot buy in
No.
Czech Republic and get them shipped, right? That's the problem, right?
we can send it on the border.
And I will pick them up somewhere, or how does
Yeah,
it?
yeah. I will send you my contact and we can talk about it.
Okay, great.
Hansi drives over the border in a beautiful black Rolls-Royce Phantom. He opens up the side doors and boom, there goes the cigars.
That works fine for me. Okay.
He'll get them to you. He'll get them to you for sure.
Dejan, I'll take you by the hand and I'll introduce you to a couple of Austrian retailers who do a great job as well. So
Yeah,
shop
because Excalibur
locally. We've
damaged.
got great people here.
Yeah, Excalibur that damaged the market in Austria.
I have to say though, there are phenomenal retailers in Austria, and they do a great job. So,
But there are no 30th anniversary in Austria.
We have loads of it.
Yeah, there is no 30th anniversary in Austria. They're available, but like I said, the distributor has to get the license. He has to register the brands, and if he's not going to go out for the work to get the bands registered, because there's a lot of people asking for them, it's tough. But Hansa will be able to help you out.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
John.
Greetings, Mr. Perdomos from the far off land of Idaho.
All right.
Wanted to say right off the bat that I'm really proud that Nicholas has taken the time to honor his father with the Legacy cigars. This is not a question, but a humble request. Nicholas, you're starting up the YouTube channel again. If you get the chance, please, I need you to go out 3:30 in the morning and record the snap, crackle, and pop of those plants growing. That would be a cool YouTube short.
Yeah, when we go down to Nicaragua, we'll do it. We got some really cool stuff that we're going to be working on here pretty soon, not only just for YouTube, but also for all other social media platforms. From a manufacturing side, in terms of just the marketing side, the social media side, what we're doing really has never been done, especially from a family-run cigar business. So I'm excited about this, and that's my little teaser to you. So we got a lot of stuff coming.
You guys are really going to like what we're doing. Hey,
Great
other
idea, John. Many thanks for that. Great input. Andy, I think I've never seen you outside of your smoking lounge. There's a new backdrop.
Yeah,
It
the
looks
weather's
very
pretty
relaxed.
Yeah, I'm very kicked back. You know, I've been smoking Perdomo champagnes for almost 20 years now, and still love them. And I can sit out here and relax and enjoy it, you know, and when we have good weather. But speaking from the weird state of California, you know, it's funny because I remember when Nick walked up to me and said, "What the hell's wrong with your state?" You know? And I often ask myself the same question. But Nick, we've known each other a long time. Nicholas, we've known each other a long time. I wanted to bring up, because I've never heard you talk about the machine you invented. And I think they'd find that interesting.
Which one?
The planter with the seedlings?
Yeah, what I wanted to do is so a tobacco plant has a seed, it's the size of a grain of pepper in reality. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it. So what we normally do is we take a spreader and we spread all these seeds out in an open furrow of land, and these seeds have to fight to get light, and then you always get about 60% germination. I always thought, man, that's terrible. So what I wanted to do was be able to capture a seed and plant it in a seed tray in a greenhouse. Well, people said, well, you don't want to do it. You only do that with wrapper. I said, well, filler's super important. And they said, yeah, but it's too costly. I said, well, it's costly if you lose a customer. It takes 10 years to get a customer, 3 seconds to lose one. So what I want to do is I want to capture a seed, be able to put it in the seed tray. So what I did is I decided to, when we would pick seed, that I would take a lead-based pencil with a little bit of distilled water, and I would capture the seed, and we would pay people to put the seed in the middle of this cup and plant tobacco. And it was very time consuming. Each seed tray holds 96 seeds. And the average girl did about 13, 14 trays. And you can only imagine how popular I was. It was a real pain in the ass to do that. But guess what happened? We had incredible germination. I said, boy, this is the answer. But it was taking too long. And I literally had hundreds and hundreds of women in seed rows doing this one by one. But I was getting incredible germination, over 90%. And I said, this is the answer. And I was up in Wisconsin, and I met a guy at a cigar shop. This is where I get a lot of my ideas. And I said, and he said, started talking. I'm a big fan. Thank you very much. What do you do for me? He said, I make cedar machines. And I said, what's a cedar machine? He said, well, we take potato seeds, tomato seeds, for example, and we have this little coupling, and we can drop them in. And I said, that's kind of what I'm doing, but I'm doing a pencil. And I think I got an idea how we could do this. He said, well, tobacco plant has, it's size of a grain of pepper, you'll never be able to do it. I said, yeah, tobacco's a lot like sex. You got to have suction, vibration, and blowing. And he started laughing. And he said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, if you took a flat piece of metal, for example, or aluminum, and you suck that seed in, all the seeds are gummy. So they all stick to each other. So it's a real pain in the ass. We have to pull them one by one by one. But if you had vibration, you could knock that seed out. And with suction, you could keep that seed. And you took a piece of just clear monofilament or plastic, and you would stick that seed in. And then what you could do is you could inject it. He said it was impossible. I said, no, nothing's impossible. I said, this is my idea. I drew it out. I do a lot of drawing at night when I'm in Nicaragua. Anyway, I ended up making this machine. I think only one has been sold out of the 18 that we have. I didn't patent it because I didn't want to buy the company, but it's incredible. Now we inject one seed into its own coupling. The seed never suffers. It gets all its nutrients all by one. And now with this machine that it was developed, one operator, instead of doing 13 to 14 trays, does about 1,800 trays per day. And that's really expedited not only the quality of our tobacco, but the real consistency of the seed, which is one of the most important things to make the cigar. And that machine has really worked extremely well with us. I also developed a seed separator where I use it with gravity, and I can pick the very best seeds. And that's how a great cigar develops. And a lot of my friends and competitors think I'm crazy and anal, but I'm not. I'm anal for you. Because whether you sell my cigars or buy them, I want you to enjoy them. I'm very picky in what I buy, and I think you guys should be equally as picky. My customers come in every day to smoke cigars because they're satisfied. If my cigars didn't satisfy them, I got 4 police officers here sitting in front of me. I think they'd shoot me if they weren't happy with the cigars. So I want everybody to be happy with them, but they know our consistency and the quality of the product. And I think your customers deserve that. I buy certain brands because they work for me and they're quality. If I bought a shirt and every time I turned over it ripped, I don't think I'd buy that shirt anymore. And you only get one chance in a lot of cases. That was an excellent question, Andy. I hope I answered it for you.
Yeah, I just thought everyone would appreciate the fact that not only are you vertically integrated, but you also come up with machinery that helps make the job easier and more consistent. And that's consistency is everything in the cigar. You know, for me to be smoking the same cigar for 20 years is saying something.
Yeah, it sure is. And I appreciate it. You've been a long seasoned cigar smoker. Look, the company makes over 20 million cigars a year. In 2024, or in 2025 now, 2024, last year, we had 4 complaints. Out of 21 million cigars, 4 complaints is pretty good. And one of the things that I was proud of is when there's a complaint, there's only one guy who answers the complaint. That would be me. And I think I'm as busy as anybody else, but it's irrelevant. I think it's a really sad state of affairs when the CEO of a company can't get in touch with a customer to find out, 1, what the problem was, 2, how to fix the problem. I don't understand it. So it was kind of funny. Out of the 4, I would say they were all operator error. But you're talking about 0.01% of a complaint. I'm happy about that. When a customer says, I've smoked your cigar for 20 years, I've had a lot of people, fortunately for us, Andy, that have said the same thing, and the consistency and the enjoyment of the product. I mean, that's what we work for. It's not just it's the business, but it's also to satisfy your consumers. I'm a real big believer in that. So thank you.
And the last question, which is Art, I guess, was too shy to ask you yesterday, but La Tradicion, Cameroon, are you ever planning on re-releasing that cigar?
Yeah, if we could get some decent Cameroon. Look, here's the problem. Me and Reinhardt, it's kind of funny. We're in Vienna and we were smoking his line of Cameroon cigars. He distributes in Austria. And one of the things that we noticed was, the wrappers are more drier, they're more brittle, they're more delicate, and more fragile than these wrappers that we use today. These really thick Habano wrappers, our thick Maduro wrapper, even our Connecticut wrappers are much thicker. So for so many years since Rick Merrifeld passed, I stopped using Cameroon. And what happened was I wanted that Cameroon flavor back. And this is how it came out with our Nicaraguan shade grown. But I don't know if our rollers, being so spoiled working with the wrappers they are today, could really go back and work with really thin, fragile wrappers, because they get quite spoiled. So it's a great question. It's kind of sad. We have a little petite Corona that we make, comes in a box of 10. And I just got news this morning that we're done with the production. We have no more tobacco. And what's crazy about that tobacco, that was tobacco I bought from Rick. And that wrapper is from the 1997, 1998 crop. I wasn't going to put that the tobacco was 25, 26, 27, 28 years old every year I had it. They were basically 13-inch leaves. They were very small, and I was getting tired of looking at it. It wasn't because of my infinite wisdom I had this tobacco so long. Rick did a great job aging and fermenting the tobacco on his own. And what had happened was I told Sarah Gonzalez, I said, I said, we got to make cigars with this wrapper. I'm sick and tired. I'm humidifying the electricity and the expenses of keeping this tobacco up. And she said, you can't really make a cigar. I said, I don't care if it's 1 inch by 10. We're going to make cigars with it. And she said, the biggest cigar we can make on that on average is about 4 3/4 by 46. I said, well, let's make a 4 by 44. And we ended up selling about 5.5 million of those cigars. And now we're done. And what's sad of it is it's one of my favorite cigars, and I got none to smoke. So I see a gentleman out there with an ESV. I own the company. I don't even have one of those. So that's pretty cool. Brought out a cigar that he had that I don't even have. So let's see what happens. Maybe Jeremiah comes up with something, and I could see it. Maybe we would. But honestly, it's nothing wrong with the wrapper. It's just when guys are used to working these big 19-inch, 21-inch leaves, real oily, really stretchy, they get spoiled. I'm afraid sometimes they won't be able to work with this tobacco. So it's something we're thinking about in the future. That's a great question.
Thank you, Andy. Great question indeed. Scott, over to you. Good to see you, young man.
Yeah, good evening. Good evening, Reinhard. Nice to see you. Good to see Nick Jr. and Nicholas. Looking forward very, very much to welcoming you, Nick, to Scotland in 17 days for our little event, Meet the Makers in the castle. So, and it's good to see Raid on the forum. He's traveling over from Dubai, all the way from Dubai to Scotland to join us. So, anyone listening, anyone interested, there's about 10 tickets left, and then we're done. Okay. But no, I've been very lucky listening to your conversation because I've been down to your facilities with UK retailers for the last 3 years. And
God, I can hardly hear you.
sorry, it's because I'm such a quiet guy. Okay. Is that better?
A little bit better, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we've been down to the facilities the last 3 years with a lot of UK retailers. And we brought about 40 retailers to your factory. And I think it's fascinating your seed, what you were talking about, the seed machine. When we get back to the hotel at night, it's the talk of the day. Like, this is crazy. Like, you're like a mad scientist making cigars. And they love it, yeah, because you run it like a military operation. But the attention to detail is incredible. Okay, so that's a compliment. Okay. But listen, without hogging it, I just want to say I look forward to seeing you. And I want to ask a really serious question. Nicholas, what will the little baby that Lauren is carrying be called?
His name will be Nicholas Emmanuel Perdomo. And
wow, I had £5 on that. Send her my love and best to Janine, and lovely to see you. See you soon, okay?
Thank you,
See you soon, Scott. Thank you.
Cheers.
We also have Ivan with us, and Ivan was our guest at the lounge a couple of weeks ago. Tremendous singer, an incredible artist, but also a cigar brand owner and manufacturer. So, Ivan, it's good to see you again, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Pleasure, Reinhard. First of all, I wanted to thank you to give us all the chance to have these two tycoons of the cigar industry, which are Nick and Nicholas. I've had the chance to meet them at the PCA, this last PCA. And of course, even though I'm in the cigar industry, I'm a pretty newcomer, being a tenor myself, but with my partner, Nicaraguan partner, Donaldo Gonzalez, we produce our cigars in Jalapa. First of all, I wanted to tell you that your videos at your YouTube channel, Nick, are an absolute masterclass. I've seen all of them. I've enjoyed them. You're such a humble person to share all your knowledge with anybody and everybody that's willing to learn more and to profit about your knowledge. That is the first thing I wanted to thank you. And the second question I wanted to ask you is, do you use in your blends Jalapan tobacco?
I'm a big lover of tobacco from Jalapa. We have 6 farms in the Jalapa Valley, and I'd love to come and visit you one time when I'm up there. I go there quite a bit. I'll be in Jalapa next month. And
Sure.
yeah, we have farms there, and I've been growing tobacco from Jalapa for it's my 25th year in Jalapa. So yeah, and you're more than welcome if you ever get down to Escalade to come visit us too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm a big lover of Jalapa. Very aromatic, sweet tobacco. It's a great blending tobacco. Most of our wrappers come from the Jalapa Valley. And yeah, Jalapa is very, very near and dear. Matter of fact, one of our biggest farms is named in Jalapa, is named after my wife. It's called Finca Janine in
Okay.
Jalapa. So yeah, I go there all the time.
Okay, so I'll drop by when we are in into Tobacco this year. Are you going to be there? Sure.
Yes, I will.
Okay, so I'll go meet you there and shake hands.
Sounds
Pleasure.
good.
Congratulations for your fantastic work.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to seeing you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ivan, for chiming in. Nick, I wanted to briefly go back to the tobacco and to the seeds, and in particular to the hybrid that you've created using Cameroon and your Habano seed. Now, at what point do you feel that a certain tobacco, a certain seed grown in a new area becomes its own thing because it adapts and it sort of becomes more comfortable with its natural habitat and it becomes one with the terroir, and then it develops into its own thing because Cameroon being grown from Sumatra seed after so many years is very distinct and a world of its own, truly. And then you take something you create something new, bringing together two different worlds, creating a hybrid. And then once you grow it in Nicaragua, at what point do you feel like it turns into its own thing, if that makes sense?
It does. It depends. Look, for example, we grew Habana 2000 in Nicaragua. It didn't really work for us. People still grow it. It just didn't work to the characteristics we have. But we have a seed variety that we developed a little over 4 years ago that most tobaccos produce about 50% light tobacco, 25% medium grade tobacco, and 25% stronger type tobaccos. And this particular strain is producing much more heavier type tobaccos. It's the seed varieties. We don't necessarily grow seed varieties just to combat mold spores and viruses too. A lot of times we grow them for annular length, depending on the size tobaccos we think will produce in the years to come. Because remember, we work for the consumer. So never in my life did I think we were going to make 60 ring gauges. But in 1997, I came out with a brand called Immenso, which is a 70 ring gauge. It was eating all my fillers up. And we brought it back again, and we have to work for our consumer base. So there's certain tobaccos that are short and stout that don't necessarily work for these types of cigars. So seed varieties are very essential to it. We came up with this great seed variety. I told my genetic department, I said, what are we going to call this? I thought, let's make this really cool code word, OU817 or something. And they called it Corojo Mejorado, which means it's better Corojo. I thought it was such a stupid name, but that's the way we kept the name because that's what our guys wanted to call it. They said it's better than the previous seed we had. So, it's kind of funny. And seed varieties, they degenerate in time because of spores, molds and viruses. So we're literally trying to develop stuff pretty consistently, at least every 2 cycle years, because there is seed strains really have a shelf life of about 60 to 70 months. They start degenerating, and there's a lot of reasons for it. Even though we protect the seeds with paper bags for cross-pollination and so on and so on, they do degenerate. And a lot of it has to do with different farmers in different valleys who don't really take care of the seed variety, allow cross-pollination. You see a lot of these tobacco leaves of different people that I've seen, that I've actually witnessed, where it doesn't even look like a tobacco leaf. It's got hair on the side of it, points and stuff, because the seed is degenerated because they allowed it to. So it's really important for us to keep the seed variety as whole as possible. And if we start seeing diseases or molds or spores attacking, we're going, and we love that seed. We're going to start working that seed, trying to see if we can combat that. And our genetic department does a great job of that. So we're consistently, literally every other cycle, developing seed. Some of it works, a lot of it doesn't, but you have to stay on top of the game.
Excellent point. Now, let's go back to the community aspect a little bit towards the end of our show. And let's talk about the Perdomo Army and how you constantly go about nurturing those relationships and building these incredibly strong bonds with your consumers. What do you think is the one thing or multiple things that set Perdomo apart in the way that you nurture those relationships and keep that army strong and growing?
Whether it be our sales team or our management team, we're always hitting the shoe leather, visiting our consumers. The most important thing to me from day one when I started my business wasn't a page in Cigar Aficionado, it was actually seeing our consumers. So I hit the road consistently for years and years and years, nonstop. Nicholas has done it, Arthur's done it, Nelson's done it, Ralph's done it. All my interior guys have been on the road consistently meeting our consumers. And whether it be even here at the home office, anytime a customer comes in, I always talk to them. And I think you build really good relationships because some of these guys think they're rock stars, and I'm certainly not. Greatest asset of my company is my consumer base and my workforce, certainly not me. So we've been very proactive in building relationships with our consumers, our retailers, our distributors all around the world. They all know us pretty much personally. And I can tell you with millions and millions of miles on the road that I've traveled here in the United States, I've gotten to meet a lot of great people, been even friends with a lot of people that we have. And I think that kind of sets us apart where I talk to a lot of business owners in my industry. They couldn't tell you where a cigar store was because they really don't want to really acclimate and try to be with the consumer, which to me is mind-boggling that I wouldn't want to do a podcast with you or one that I did yesterday or one I'm going to do next week. I always want to be in front of the consumer because I'm really resilient and very appreciative that every one of you put food on my table. And I'm certainly not a rock star. I make cigars. I didn't develop the cure for cancer. I'm just very happy you guys enjoy our products. But I think that kind of separates us. Many years ago, I went to a Kiss concert and we ended up hanging out with Gene Simmons, and he had told me about this thing they had called the Kiss Army many years ago. And at the time they had 35 million people. He said, you should do something similar to that. I'm a former Navy guy, but Army kind of worked really good. So now we're going to have these new care packages where if you're part of the Perdomo Army, you're going to get a shirt, you're going to get dog tags. I met a guy in Iowa who makes dog tags, and that'll be in the packet where people can actually get Perdomo Army dog tags. And I'm just very humbled and happy that we have such a big fan base. We had a big company here in America. I won't mention their name, but they did a whole study. They did 511 cigar retailers in America and asked them what the most loyal brand they was. And they mentioned 5 brands. Luckily, we're in pretty much all 5 of them. But the most loyal brand was Perdomo. And that Perdomo Army has really worked good. And there's people that wear Perdomo Army shirts all around the world. And we're really proud of that. I mean, we sell probably tens of thousands of those T-shirts a year. And it's really nice when people are really, really like your brand. No different than someone who wears a Puma shirt or an Adidas shirt or whatever. They like those brands, and we're happy that they enjoy our brands, and we're very humbled by it. I don't know if you have anything on that.
I'm spot on.
Yeah.
And I think the big thing too is that it's we take advantage of social media. Today that's the biggest. I mean, it's the greatest way to really engage, right? And so when you look at our Facebook platform, I think my dad's led the charge over the last 5, 6, 7+ years on Facebook. He's well known for interacting with customers, and I think I learned a lot from that, watching that. And I think the biggest thing, like with the Perdomo Legacy, with the launch, I created a launch, about 6 months prior to the actual product release. I wanted to do a campaign, Perdomo Legacy campaign, and show the process of Nicaragua Shade-Grown Tobacco, a project between father and son, and not even show the cigars, not even show the packaging. And that was the first 6 months and so the engagement was incredible. I mean, we engaged, I think it was a little over 130,000 people within a 5.5 month period. I mean, it would take my dad and I 100 years of being on the road every week and meeting in order to meet 130,000 people. These were like big stadiums, and we did it within 5.5 months. And I think it helped propel this brand a lot. But staying in front of our consumers, again, not to reiterate, just repeat what you said, but you guys do put food on our table. We never take it for granted. And growing up in this industry and watching the sacrifice that my dad made, with not being home, with myself and my mom and my sister, it's our obligation, our duty, really, to give our retailers and our consumers and our distributors the best that we have.
Yeah, if you notice, one of the magazines that I'm really proud to advertise with is Cigar Journal. And if you notice, most advertisements have the owners of the company in their pages. If you notice, a Perdomo advertisement never has a picture of me or anybody. It's all about the product.
That's
right?
going to change though, because now it's all about Perdomo Legacy and your brand, and I'm not going to let that happen anymore. So,
well, for 25 years or 30 years of advertising in Cigar Journal, I've always used the cigar brand, yet everywhere I go, people know who I am. And I attribute a lot of that from all the road work that I did. I've talked to them, they know you, and I'm like, how do I know you? Well, I took a picture with you 20 years ago, 10 years ago. I never forgot you. You know what I mean? And the longevity of the brands is a big thing. I was just recently in the Midwest, and a customer said, hey, I want to show you something. He had the original box of Perdomo Reserve champagne. It wasn't even the 10th anniversary. I said, wow, that box is 26 years old or 25 years old. And he said, it is. He goes, and this is my son. And when my son was born, I bought that box. And today I'm buying 3 boxes because he's getting married. And that's what we see. Boy, that's what it's all about, right? When you really think about it, it's the longevity of the brand. It's not throwing something up to get it to stick. I want all our guys to be able to sell these brands year in and year out and not have to worry about something new. Or you had brought up a point of limited edition. These games I don't like to play. My job is to produce cigars that can be sold every single day in every retail shop in America. And whether it's John Strange or Hans or anybody who's selling the cigars, I want that consistency where they could sell these brands year in and year out. That's why we work so hard.
Yeah, and that truly shines. And Nick, because you mentioned it, I wanted to give kudos to Reinhold and Katja and the entire Cigar Journal team, because they do a phenomenal job. And Reinhold sent us a message before the show. He has guests to entertain tonight, but he's here with us in our hearts, and I hope he's going to rewatch the show tomorrow. And big shout out to them and how they keep the cigar culture alive.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of the magazine. If I was, I wouldn't. It's the only cigar magazine I actually advertise with all the years we've been in business. It's the only really true cigar magazine. I love it. I hope more and more people read it, and either whether it be on the web or on print. It's a great magazine. I can tell you I've been in the industry a lot of years. I read it every time I get it. So when professionals in this industry read it, it tells you what a magazine it is.
Amen. One thing that I wanted to say about marketing, advertising, or even when you're on the road and when you meet people, Nicholas, you mentioned social media. At the end of the day, the only thing that marketing does is it exposes you even more, and it makes your true colors shine and come to the forefront. And that's where I think you guys have been incredibly successful, is that you always keep it real. And you provide value in the way you speak, everything that you shared with us tonight, and with every single cigar that you put in the box and you put into consumers' mouths. And that I have the utmost respect for, and I want to thank you for that. We need that. That's what the industry is all about. It's authenticity, it's sincerity, and being real. And you guys, both of you, sitting here together with me, sharing such a precious and intimate moment, and talking about your legacy and your family and the bond that you have, which is very apparent even through the screen. That's truly phenomenal and something special. And I treasure you, and I'm blessed to call you friends and fellows along the journey. it's wonderful to spend that time with you. So kudos to you, and keep doing what you're doing.
Well, thanks for having us. And I want to thank everybody who's been listening in and taking their time out of their evening or day, wherever they are in the world, to listen to us. And we want to thank each and every one of you.
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks for the support.
Great pleasure. One last question, and then I'll let you guys go. Nick, if you were to kind of like start the whole thing all over again, or if Nicholas were to start anew in the business, what would be the one thing that you would advise him on today if you were to start afresh?
Well, it's like any business, it's a hard business to get in. Look, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but you got to be willing to put in a tremendous amount of hours. I think you have to be focused not only on your passion, but executing your passion. And you have to be resolute of investing a tremendous amount of time in yourself, in your customer base, and most importantly, in the quality of the product. And you can't think about a dollar so quick. You have to remember to invest in your business. I was lucky. I had another job. I was an air traffic controller. So that kind of helped me out because I had a salary, but I was working 2 jobs at one time. I worked 18 hours straight every single day of the week for about 3.5 years. If you're willing to do that, you can be successful, but most people aren't willing to do that. And I understand why. It's a tremendous amount of time. I was very fortunate that when my wife supported me, but I think if you do those 3 things, which is passion, execute, and care about the quality of your product before you make a buck. I didn't collect a paycheck for almost 4 years. I reinvested every penny I had back in my business, and I never borrowed a dollar from a bank, believe it or not. I still to this day have never borrowed a dollar from a bank in my business. Everything that you see in our facilities, everything was paid lock, stock, and key from the company, but we had to do it methodically. It took a long time to do it. Maybe I look back, maybe I could have done it faster if I would have used the bank's money and be able to propel myself quicker. But I think the way I did it was the right way. It's the way my mom was always no debt. And we're a completely debt-free company, but I understand the other ways of doing it also. But it worked for us, and I sleep good every night, and I sleep good every night knowing that we produce a great product that's meant to be sold every day at real reasonable price points. I think if I had to do something over again, I don't know if I would really change what I did. I might not have been so gullible. I got screwed by people because I didn't know any better. You know, a young guy coming out of the military trying to build a business. You know, I didn't have everything there. I was very blessed that my father came to help me in 1994. That really kind of got us through because he had a lot more experience than I had in business. So I would say that was, but it takes a tremendous amount of work to do it. I've had a lot of famous athletes ask me, TV people, hey, can you make a cigar for me? And I always say no. And they always say, well, all the other cigar makers say I can make it big. And I always say, no, you can't make it big because you're not going to put in the effort and the work to do it. Are you? And they say, well, no. And I said, well, then it won't be popular. People will buy it one time, but they won't buy it again. You know, it's like all these guys coming out with these new vodka lines, scotch lines, and bourbon lines. How many of them are successful today? People buy once, but it's all about consistency and quality where people keep buying over and over again. I don't know what you thought.
That's very true. Yeah. And Nick, you can most certainly sleep peacefully at night because you know that the company is in good hands and you have the next generation sitting right next to you, proudly waving the flag and paving the path to the future.
Thank you.
He's my son. He's done a great job. Like I said, he's a lot better than I was at his age. So, but that was my job to make him better, right? Yeah, so that's why I was
right. Nick Perdomo Jr., Nicholas Perdomo III, thank you both very, very much for everything that you shared with us, and continued success. All the health in the world to you, and thanks for everything.
Thank you, guys. It was great seeing you guys.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Take care.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I'll see you next week. Same time, same station. Light 'em up.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Have a great evening.
Bye. Thanks, Nick and Nicholas.
Great show. Thank you, guys.
See you. Follow.